Hi everyone. We are back on our seems to be Friday live session, which we're picking up as a theme now. So Carrie and Ellie here. Um, hello Ellie. We have our beautiful Bonnie behind the camera. Hello. So we've decided to come and sit with Mole today. So anything could happen actually. I could lose my hat. He could, I don't know, lick Ellie or something. But our theme of the day was to pick up more of a chat really about our rescue horses, what we do with them, where we get them from, all sorts of things. So we've had loads of really good questions in from you. So thanks very much for all of that. And basically, we're going to just give you a little bit of an insight into what we do and why we do it. If you hear some background noise, there's a 7-year-old on a tractor over there. Yeah, so we'll try and sort that out in a sec. So yeah, basically, the different things that happen on the yard. Obviously, we have the riding school that a lot of you come to and do. Some people know about the fact that we take rescue horses, others don't. And there's all different types of rescue horses that we get. So I would say about 70% of the horses that we have on the riding school have come from some form of rescue home. Some of the competition horses, well, most of the ones that I've got now are all from a rescue background. And I guess the first question would be to answer is why we do that. I think it really stems from the fact that we've always worked on quite a small budget here, and we are a sucker for a sad story. So any riding school horses that we've ever brought in have always had to be within a very small budget. So that's got some carrots in. Cue the subtle thing for carrots. So Ellie, you can start a little bit and pick one of the school ponies, and we'll just start to discuss them. Just first of all, I think Rebecca Holcroft, thanks for the question, Rebecca, wanted to know a little bit about Alfie's story.
Yeah. Alfie came from a lady, a nice lady with good intentions, but she wasn't really that horsey. She was a bit nervous. She wasn't quite sure what she was doing.
We probably need to fill this in, Ellie, by giving you the education of the day, taking you out to buy a horse with you.
Yeah, I'm getting to that.
Okay, go for it. Go. Okay.
So, Carrie said, Ellie, come for a trip in the lorry and I'll take you to find a new horse. Okay, fine. So we're driving through housing estates, random places. We pulled up at this yard, which was a little bit run down, but okay, the yard was fine.
Yeah.
And then we were walking around the yard and then we saw a pony tied up, and I walked straight past said pony and said, oh, look, it's not that one, is it? Carrie then stopped me, turned me around and said, yes, it's that one. Alfie looked nothing like you would ever know. Looked nothing like he does now. So yeah, she tacked him up. His tack was green.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I rode him.
It was green with mould, not green in colour.
Not because it was meant to be green.
Yeah. So most of the horses, it's a little bit like renovating a house. When we go and see a pony, we sort of see through all the muck and the hair and the general shabbiness, and we have to see through what we can actually see and make. Ellie had to learn that. So that was her education in not judging a book by its cover, really, because a lot of the horses that turn up on the yard look absolutely awful when they arrive. So basically, I guess Alfie's backstory is he came from a very novice person who did love him, but was just not really dealing with him.
Yeah. She just wanted him to have a nice life, yeah. And then she wasn't quite sure how to make a nice life.
Yeah. So he was very easy to turn around in that he wasn't particularly upset by life, but he just needed to just find some routine and a nice place to live that sort of treated him like a horse, not like a pet, really. So thanks for that question, Rebecca. So that's Alfie. He's currently absolutely fine, loving his holidays, and doing really well. So that's good. Married Willow. So that's all above board now, and they're having a great time. Oh, good. So we're sat in front of Mole for a reason. Now, he probably, you would argue, is probably one of the most famous rescue horses that we've got because he's been so complex. And that really ties into a question that Angela chucked at us, which is, have you ever had one that you've not managed to turn around or, make better? And I guess the closest we've ever come to is Mole. He was complex in so many ways. He's beautifully bred, so you would expect him to be a very expensive horse, but had just really gone to the wrong place. What a horse like this needs is structure and discipline in his life, and stability, and none of that he'd got at all. So he became basically very, very dangerous, very, very distressed, very upset, and it really came across in just anger and tension and wanting to fight about everything and not trusting anybody, and it was really difficult. So Ellie has had to work with me and him together, and although there's only ever really been one person this horse has ever trusted, which is me, Ellie sort of had to support us on that, haven't you? And it really is a team effort. It's not just one person doing this. So there is a time and a place with every rescue horse where we just go one-to-one with it sometimes, because they just need one person who that they can trust. But obviously, realistically, I can't do everything the whole time. So Ellie is really experienced and can step in and do the work when I need her to as well. And that's really very much about routine, discipline. So where we can pick up from that is that when we receive a rescue horse for the first time on the first day, it's really having a bit of a system in place as to how we begin to tackle that. Because if you have in your mind, sort of a lorry will appear, and if they're delivered from the RSPCA, it's a big lorry that drives onto the yard, and we don't know what's going to come off that lorry. And they're always frightened. They're always quite distressed. It's not the RSPCA's fault. It's just probably they've never travelled. They've been passed around from pillar to post. And so Ellie can pick up the story of Slinky when he first arrived. You were here, weren't you?
Yeah, I think Carrie was actually on holiday somewhere. So the big lorry came, and there was Slinky, and there was also Trooper in there as well.
Yeah.
So it was two guys. I think they were just sort of, what do you call them? People that travel horses.
Transported.
Transported guys for the RSPCA. They brought Trooper off, that was fine, put him away in his stable, and then Slinky, because he was so scared of being outside, he just wouldn't come out. We couldn't get the poor horse out. We tried food, we tried everything to get him out. It took about an hour, and eventually he ended up actually falling off the side of the ramp. He was that scared. His legs just gave out and he just fell off the side, which is when he then went into his stable after a lot of coaxing. Cue to the story where he wouldn't come out for 3 days because, again, he was so scared of being outside.
Yeah, so we touched on Slinky's story last time, and he's the horse that got found in a tiny little barn with a bunch of other horses, and had basically been locked in the stable / barn for about 5 years and had never come out at all. So to him, the big wide world was much more frightening than the very little place that he'd lived in. So he wasn't used to moving his body, he wasn't used to being in an environment that he wasn't used to, and incredibly traumatizing. So when they first come off, basically your first instinct is to probably feed these horses and make them look better, but that's precisely what you don't want to do straight away. And this is where a team scenario kicks in that they often come in looking really thin, don't they, and really, really sad. And so your natural
want to go, give it lots of food to make it feel better.
Yeah, and instinctively as humans we want to make it feel better and do all of that. But if we go in straight ahead and say, here's a load of feed, conditioning cubes, we're going to make you feel better, then we'd probably end up making them more ill because they're not used to it. 9 times out of 10, their teeth are in a terrible mess. So horses' teeth go a long way up the side of their mouth, and they grind. And if their teeth haven't been properly looked after, they can be very, very sharp. So certainly Slinky and Trooper and him and Teddy all had terrible ulcers along the inside of their mouth. So it stands to reason if you give them food and they're trying to eat that, they're not going to be able to do that process very well. That can give them colic, it can make them poorly. So really, the very first thing that we always have to do is make them happy and make them calm and make them settled. So they go to an area of our yard that's really quiet, and they just have time just to calm down and be quiet. That's Hattie crying. I don't know where. She might come up here in a minute. Oh no. Poor Hattie. That's the 2-year-old of the yard. So that's what we do, really. We set up a calm, quiet place and start with that. And then we then systematically start to go through things. So again, your natural instinct is to get them feeling better. So you know, on your systems of what you want to do, you might want to get the vet in to look at their teeth. But the likes of Slinky that hadn't been handled by anybody, to suddenly get the vet and start grinding his teeth would be incredibly traumatic. So you've got to really choose the sequence of events that the horse is going to be able to tolerate well. This is small. And really only start to go about those jobs when you've got the horse mentally on side, and then start to work through their physical issues as well. So that's basically what we do when they first arrive. We work very closely with a feed company called Bailey's. We're really lucky to be supported by them. And we work closely with Caroline Dickens there. And she will come in and have a look at the horses. And we start to figure out what's going to be the best feed for them. Because not all the rescue horses come in really thin. Teddy wasn't thin. But it's making sure that the food that they can use can be utilised correctly and well. And most of the horses really aren't used to any hard feed, so they're very suspicious. Most of them don't know what a carrot is or a polo, do they? No, it's really sad. So we have to work on that aspect of it, really. So what you'll see from Mole in the background here is him sort of attention seeking, him scraping his teeth on the side is a little bit like tension. It's trying to get some attention from me. It's, you know, it's what he does. But he's got to really just get used to just stuff happening that he isn't in control of. You know, he randomly has chosen to live in this stable. It's not the biggest stable in our yard, but if we try and put him in any of the bigger ones around on the yard, he climbs out and becomes quite hysterical. So really, this stable is on the small side for such a big horse, but you've got to just weigh it up. Is he happier in a smaller one and more settled, so less likely to, you know, Tim, she can come here if you want. Tim! You can come here, Harry said. Yeah. 2-year-old wants to come in on the next, and that's fine. So really it's just about finding the right balance for the horse. Sorry everyone, Hattie's coming. There we go. So Ellie can pick up the thread a little bit on how we start working the horses, because some of them are broken or not broken. So let's take an example of an unbroken one. So let's say Trooper, who came with Slinky. How do we start?
So first things first, we have to establish whether they know what tack is and if they've ever had tack on, and the majority have never seen a saddle or a bridle, and that's something that could maybe potentially upset them. Slinky didn't like having his girth on first time. Some of them don't like the feeling of the saddle or the bit in their mouth. So first thing we do is we find a bridle that fits them, and we put the bridle on and then just leave them to sort of figure out the feeling of it, and then we'll do the same the next day with the saddle as well, and then we'll walk them around, just in hand, walk them around so they can feel the saddle sort of moving, the girth between their legs, that sort of thing, the bit in the mouth, sort of getting it comfortable. Then from them we'll take them into, generally we'll start in the indoor school. It's a little bit quieter, there's less things to look at, it's just you and the horse, and we'll start to work them. First thing we'll do is, should we join up or?
Yeah, we do a bit of join up, which I think is something that we'll discuss at a later date and maybe give a demonstration of that. A lot of work that we do is on the ground first, because these horses don't really trust humans at all. They've been let down by them, they might have been beaten by them, they might have just not been taught the boundaries, so a lot of them are really frightened. Mole in particular just had no respect for humans at all, so I'd walk him down the yard and he'd just be on top of me, trying to squash me against the wall. If I went in his stable, he'd be really aggressive. So a lot of it really is teaching them about hierarchy and pecking order, and us being their humans, we've got to be top of the herd and then they will respect us. So what we mean about pecking order is if you have 20 horses in a field, there will be the top horse, the one in control of everything, all the way down to 20th at the bottom. And you would tend to find 20th at the bottom is probably the young 2-year-old that's a bit of a scamp and just gets told off by everybody and sent out of the herd regularly because they're naughty all the time. Wheezy and Wilbur would be one. So our job really to give these horses some stability is to let them know that we're head of the herd so that they can relax in our company, and that is what I constantly work on with Mole. Mole is a very, very dominant horse, and and although he's not a stallion, he's quite stallion-like in his behaviour. So the biggest issue I've had with him is letting him let down his barriers and trust me instead of faffing around and fighting the whole time. And that's still in our relationship what we struggle with. On a bad day, Mole think he's in charge. On a good day, he just accepts my guidance and I can teach him all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, we were saying the other day that a big thing is, like with Mole, getting him to stand still and wait. That blows his brain more than sometimes cantering around, because he doesn't understand why he has to stand and wait.
Yeah, and a lot of them are like that. Slinky would be like that.
Yeah.
Slinky is, sorry, there's another child coming. Go that way. Sorry, it's just so professional around here. This is good. Yeah, so really it's about teaching the horses that they can just take a breath around us, be calm and accept what we're telling them, and that they learn and just relax in our company. And Mole has been just such a challenge in that way, in that he wouldn't be able to stand still and turn his head off. He'd have to move, he'd have to rear, he'd try and bite me, he'd try and squash me. And if I was to meet that constantly with aggression, then it would basically make him believe that humans are just a disappointment to him and be a pain. So I'd have to be strict with him, but not go head to head, because A, I'm not going to win, and B, I've got to give him confidence. He comes across as aggressive and a complete pain in the backside, but actually underneath that, he's actually very, very insecure. And when he feels scared or trapped or unsure, he reverts back to aggression. And so it's my job as his trainer, rider, counsellor, whatever else, only friend, to try and stop him going to that level, so I can keep him on side and keep him calm. Yeah, so that's pretty much. Yeah, Daddy's over there. Over there.
So Carrie does a lot of the groundwork, the working with them, the lunging, and then I step in as the rider.
Yeah.
So she gets them to listen to the hand with the lunge line and the leg with the lunge whip, and then I sit quietly on top and we work together to get the horse used to someone being on top.
Yeah.
To make the swap from listening to your lunger to listening to your rider.
Yeah. Interestingly, some of the horses, because sometimes Charlie, who works here as well, will do the riding aspect of it, but we found with some of them, they're absolutely terrified of men. Bumble would be one.
I think
Willow was as well. So as soon as we brought a man in, they become more and more hysterical about that. And that will just come back down to memories, maybe, of who's dealt with them, and that sort of thing. So it's not to say that forever we will never let them be dealt with by a man, but sometimes you've got to choose your battles a little bit. And it might be that we get their confidence and get them going, and then slowly Charlie might come in and brush them a bit and then step out, and, that sort of thing. So feeding, yeah. So really it's just getting them used to how we deal with them and getting their confidence, really. I know that another question that somebody sent in, which is from Katie, who's been the most difficult, and yeah, you probably a Chuck Mole in there again. There has been times where he's tested me to the point where I didn't think we'd ever get anywhere with him. So I don't want to all about him, but when we started the breaking process with him, what Ellie has just discussed, when it came to the point of somebody, got to go get more carrots. Somebody leaning over him and me on the ground, he just became more and more hysterical every time I brought somebody in to deal with him. And it became very, very clear that he wasn't going to try anybody else other than me. Now, for me, that's a big, big challenge, because actually getting on a horse like this with nobody on the ground is not sensible and it's not safe. So I had to do so much groundwork. Probably for about 6 months with various things. So I had like half a torso, not a real torso, I might add, half a fake torso that I would constantly put on him, take off him. So he got used to things being above him and down again. And I would do that up to 50 times on and off a day until I got to the point where I could put the half a body on and he didn't go hysterical. And by hysterical, I mean he would rear and come at me and try and attack me. And I would do things like I'd put rugs on and off him in a flappy type way, and so he wasn't hysterical the whole time. And then it sort of got to the point where I was probably ready to be able to get on, and that was a massive, huge challenge for me. And some of you will know the story and others won't, but there was one Sunday morning in church, and our pastor, Glyn from Audacious Church, basically said there's times in our life where we overthink things and think how many things could go wrong if we do a certain thing, and give excuses as to why we shouldn't do things. And he said, what would happen if we did this thing and just started to assess what would be right if we did it. And I knew at that moment in time that I needed to act and probably develop my relationship with Mole and get on him. So had I ended up in A&E the next day, I probably would have phoned Glyn and said, what are you talking about? But as it turned out, the next morning, it was a Monday morning, I stood in the indoor school, I just put my hand on him, I said a little prayer that basically he wasn't going to kill me, and I took him to the corner where I trained him to stand and all of that, and I got on him. And from that day on, we started to just make progress. But the progress with this horse has taken more than 12 months, and we're not totally out the woods yet. He's done his first competitions and he's been out and about, but nowhere near what I think that we've won with him yet. But he does trust me, and we are making progress. And he could potentially be world class. It's not Ellie's favourite horse. She doesn't particularly like me riding him that much. But, he's found his way here, and I think they all find us for a reason. It's just a bit of a goof, that's all. Any more questions anybody's got, send them in. I don't want to just oh, Bonnie's got one.
Edie Bray, she's got a few questions, actually. Who's our newest rescue horse? Who's our oldest rescue horse? And who's got the biggest stable if Mole hasn't got it?
Lovely question.
She's been listening.
Most recent, Bungle. So Bungle came through the British Society RSPCA Second Chance scheme, and what happens through that is that the British Horse Society link in with the RSPCA, and they send rescue horses to riding schools, a small bunch of riding schools. And this is where Ellie comes in with her work a little bit. Ellie works with children who are struggling in education for various reasons, and they come here for support. And then we work with the rescue horses and the children to do that. So you can say a little bit about what you do and why that's relevant.
Yeah. So some of the children that we work with don't have, similar to the horses, a great routine at home. So we do things like showing them that the horses are a lot more happy, they're more settled when they're in a routine. They know when they're getting their breakfast, they know when they're getting their exercise, they know when they're getting their tea, they know they get a nice groom during the day. We do things like
it's really just inspiring people that you can come from a really terrible time in your life where you might be being challenged physically, mentally, financially, everything might be in a bit of a mess. So these children will see these horses come off the lorry like skeletons and terrified and having had a terrible time, but then 6 months down the line they'll see them happy and shiny coats and doing a job, and know that what's happened to them at this point in the life where they arrive to us doesn't have to be what messes up the life for the rest of their life. So our job as trainers and mentors is to use the horses to teach them that can be another way, that they don't have to keep going down the road that they're already on. So I think that answers that question. The next one, who's our oldest? It's going to be Nandi. So Nandi's story, when we first began here, which will be 20 years next year, we went out to buy a few ponies. We had hardly any money at all to start a riding school, so they had to be very cheap. And we bought 2 ponies from this one particular yard, and then saw this really sad pony sort of in the dark, a really small stable in the dark, and she had on a bridle, and then she had some string attached from her bit to a roller which goes around her tummy, and her head was strapped so tight to her chest. And so we had her pulled out, and we said to the guy, what are you doing? He said, I'm just breaking that one in, ignore that one, I'm just breaking it in. And we were like, well, why she got all that on? Oh, she's a bit difficult, that one, you don't want that one. He said, and anyway, I'm just about to break her, and he literally went to jump on her. So a 6-foot-odd bloke just jumped on her, and she was terrified. She was on 3, absolutely terrified. So instantly there we just said, right, we'll buy her, we'll just take her, just don't touch her, take all the stuff off and take her now. And so with Nandi, it took us about 6 months really to regain any trust in humans. So every time we went to put any tack on her or get on her in any way, she would just run, absolutely hysterical, run away and just be just frightened, shaking, absolutely terrified. So she would be our original rescue horse. Biggest stable. Oh, well, it's tricky. The biggest stable we did have Minty and Wilson living together in it. Flora's the one that likes the biggest stable because she likes to have a good roll. We have to watch Flora in the winter because she likes to roll, and if she doesn't get out in the playpen, she might well do it on a lesson. So we have to watch her for that. She's a little bit of a monkey for that. Bonnie's got another question. She's doing the thing
Someone
with
called
you.
Mike. He'd like to know, if you were one of the rescue horses, which one do you think you would be, as they are just like your character stroke personality? And he'd like Ellie to pick for Carrie and Carrie to pick for Ellie.
Okay. Rescue horse.
I think I can do you. I think you would be like Bumble.
Okay.
Because you're a jolly old soul, but like you have to get to know people and trust them, and then you like them after that, and then you like your life and soul then, and you support people and you're kind and all of that, and you're quite trustworthy, a little bit flighty at times.
Like when Carrie says, "Come and sit down and do a vlog." I don't want to.
So that's a bit like Bumble, and you're just calm, Bumble.
I was going to say more, then I was going to say Teddy, but no, because Teddy's a bit fat.
That's unkind.
She's struggling here.
I'm struggling.
She is struggling. You might have to leave her with that one.
I'll write that
We
one
could
up.
put that on the comments later, I'd have thought.
I think the biggest part of the work that we do that we really enjoy is taking the time. You can't see these horses as like an instant success story, because it's more like 6 to 12 months that you have to look at them for. So I don't know if anybody saw the blog from a couple of weeks ago that we did with Bungle. In about 6 months' time, that horse will look like a horse that absolutely everybody wants to buy. He'll be shiny, he'll be beautiful, he'll have manners, he'll be easy to ride. But the backstory in order to get to that point is absolutely massive. So you basically just have to set your stall out that it's going to take quite a long time to do. And that's where working with the feed company comes in. It's working with the vet. It's having like Ellie who, doing the groom side of it, where she gets that stability. It's me riding them the same each time, and all of that. So I think what you have to have in this side of our job is patience, and a commitment that you have plan A. If that's the mic, I know. I think I know. We always laugh together because I have plan A through to plan Z. And I think it's knowing that you stick to a plan for a certain amount of time, but then be flexible enough that you might have to change it. So there's a definite system in place that we have, but we're also capable of saying, do you know what, that's not quite worked for that horse, we're going to slightly alter it and do that. So it's making sure you're giving something enough time, but knowing that you've got something else in your locker if you need to is really important. Well, you're annoying. So that's pretty much getting to the end of it. Any other questions, last minute questions, chuck at us now.
Can we do a few hellos? People have been saying hello and stuff.
Good.
So Vivian says hello. Sophie Houghton, Edie, and Kate has said you do a wonderful job with the rescue horses. She's been privileged to see the work we've done with Trooper and Slinky. You're so patient and caring. Keep up the good work and keep safe.
Probably something to say there is people, just stop it. It's getting towards tea time, that's why I thought about it. To pick up on Trooper, actually, because Trooper came with Slinky, and people will realise that Trooper's not here now. Trooper basically has found his forever home. So he went to a really lovely lady not far from here, and he's going to go on and do some dressage and hacking and all that sort of stuff. So he's found his happy, safe place where he can go off and do more stuff. And that's really what we take for each horse. Sometimes, you know, horses have got a bit more to give and they'd be happy going off doing some competing. Sometimes they need to stay here. I think Slinky will probably be one that stays here forever because he's been such an extreme case, and the chances of him finding somebody that really would understand him and give him that time quite limited. But we treat every single horse as an individual, and that's absolutely crucial. So we don't set our stall out to say they have to do a certain thing. We ensure that we get to know them very, very well personally and place each horse in the job that they need to do the best. Well done, Thrive. This big oaf behind us needs to be a competition horse. He's never going to be a riding school horse. He's never going to be a horse that a novice person can ride ever. He needs the stability and the discipline of a professional rider. Because of the way he's bred, because of the way he's been brought up, for various reasons, that's what this horse needs. So that's pretty much the end of our day today. So what I would like to throw out to you lot is what you would like us to talk about next week, because we're prepared to sit here every Friday for half an hour. Yeah. So any ideas of what you want us to talk about next week, then you ask us, and we'll try and come up with the goods. Really? Yeah.
Yeah. You might not sit in front of all next time.
Yeah, never sit. No, it's just him, and you're not going to change him. It's the way he is, and that's absolutely fine. So we'll say goodbye. Tiger's been here the whole time. This is the Chihuahua Jack Russell dog. So goodbye from all of us. Take care, everybody. You know we're only ever a phone call away to have a chat, and you know you're not on your own. It might feel like it at the time, but you're not. We'll all come through this, and we'll see you the other side. So take care. See you all soon. Bye.
Send those